Welcome to Chandu's TechNet. In this video, I'll show you how to recover a suspect database, which is part of Alwayson availability group. Let's take a scenario where your secondary database is marked as not synchronizing / suspect state, right? Let's understand how to investigate the issue and how to fix that issue. Let's directly jump into the server and see the status of your database on the primary, which is synchronized. So this is the database that I have taken as a scenario, as an example, and I'll show you how to understand what was the issue. So DB1, which is in synchronized state, whereas if you expand the database is the DB1 on secondary. So this is the secondary, which is marked as suspect, not synchronizing / suspect. Okay. Let's see what is the status in the availability databases, right? Let's see the data availability replicas, which are healthy, which are joined. And if you expand the availability databases and you see the database status as pause state, right? I'll just zoom this out. I'll zoom in so that you will see the exact status, right? So the database status is in pause state, right? You see that pause symbol for this database DB1. And let's try to resume the data movement. Right click, resume secondary, resume data movement, right? So you can just script it out so that so you can execute and see exact error message on the screen if it is failed. Okay, execute, looks executed successfully, but if you see the database status, it is still as suspect. And if you see that availability databases still as suspend state. Okay, now what next? So you will have to go through the SQL error logs to understand what might have happened to this database. Let's say, for example, on the secondary, so you'll have to go through the SQL error logs, right? You have different ways to read the SQL error logs. So best way is to go with sp_read error log. Error log, I'll just use that result to a text file, result to a text, and execute. Right. So if you see here, the place where I try to resume the data movement, right? If you see that alter database, resume. So this is where I try to resume the data movement. Okay. Always on availability group data movement for the database has been resumed. So it says that it has been resumed because our query executed successfully. This is an informational message. That's okay. And non-qualified transactions are being rolled back in database DB1, whatever it is. Okay, state of the availability. These are the informational messages. State information starting up database. It is trying to start the database here at this point. Let's see. So this is an informational message. XTP is your in-memory database. That is fine. And if you see here, this is where there are few errors, right? It is trying to start the database and it is failed to start with this error message. So whatever it is, like it is not online, right? It is trying to start and immediately it is started giving errors. Let's see what is this error 5123 severity whatever 16 create file encountered operating system error. So it says that it is trying to create a file and it is failed with an operating system error 3. It says that so the system cannot find the path specified. It says that it is trying to create a file on a specific path and it is failed because that path cannot find, it is not detected or it is not finding that path to create the file. We'll see what is that file and where it is trying to create. While attempting to open or create the physical file, it says that while attempting to open or create the physical file in this location, it says that it is trying to create a file in this location db1 and it is failing. Right now, so it seems like a similar error message, so you can you will have the same information in these three messages. Let's see what is this. Cannot create the file db1_1. So it is trying to create a file, right? Use with move to specify a usable physical file name. It says that you're trying to create a file with the name db1_1 and you are not able to create because that file location does not exist, right? So what is the option it is suggesting? To use with move option to specify a location where it already exists, right? Always an availability group data movement for the database has been suspended for the following reason. I see the database status is suspended. For what reason? Following reason. What is that reason? Is system source starting suspend from redo, right? It has to reapply the changes. It is failed to redo. That is the reason the database is marked as suspecting. Why it is failed to redo? Because the file which is expecting to create is not created. It is expecting to create is not created because the location itself does not exist. See, this location does not exist. That is what this message. Let's see the file location is exist or not. This is on which server? 2012 R2 node 2, right? I will have to RDP to that mission. Let's see, 2012 R2 node 2. Okay, so if it doesn't take me through, that's okay. I'll have to enable this RDP connection. That is okay. If not, so what I can do, I can open this location from the same server. From node 1, I will open that directly to the file explorer. 2012 R2 node 2. And which drive? E drive. So you'll have to go to E dollar. Okay, this location program files and Microsoft SQL Server. In this MS SQL 13, then MS SQL. See here, like it says like DB1. It says in this MS SQL data DB1. So where is DB1? So I don't have okay data. So I don't have DB1 here. Since the location is different, location does not exist on this node, that is node 2, it is failed to create this file. That is what db1. So why it is even trying to create this file? Let's see the let's see on the primary itself. That is your NDF file, by the way, right? If you see here, this is your NDF file with name db1_1. Let's see the database file here on db1. New query. Select star from sys.master_files. F5, where database ID equal to db ID of db1. So I don't want all the databases. I just wanted to know the location of the database file location for this database db1. Right. So this is the file. Right. It is failed to create on the secondary server. And the location, if you see here, this is the location. E program files, Microsoft SQL Server, this one, and data in this location, I have created a file, db1. Right. So I have a db1 location on primary, whereas the same location, I don't have it on the secondary server, right? So that is the reason it is failed to come online and it is marked as suspect, right? Now we understand the problem. What is the problem? Someone, or due to some reason, like either a data file issue or space issue, or so the issue with the data size issue, or whatever reason, one of our team member have created or added a database file to the primary server, whereas the location is different on the secondary server, right? So the primary server, the same location does not exist on the secondary server. Because of that, the database is marked as suspect, because it doesn't have a file, or it doesn't have a location to create that file, right? So because of that, the database on the secondary is marked as suspect. Now, okay, that is the problem. And how to fix that issue, right? So in this scenario, right, so let's say, for example, if it is only a folder issue, the solution is straightforward. Let's see. If I just create a folder within the server, within the location, right? DB1 is the folder. And if I create a DB1 on secondary server, right? DB1, I just created a secondary server. And if I try to resume the data movement, right? I'm going to just resume the data movement. Done. So if I just resume the data movement, it should fix that issue. See here, DB1, because the drive is same, E drive, everything is same, only difference is the folder. If that is the scenario, then just creating this folder would help to create that file, right? So that is the reason we were able to bring the database online without any issue. Now let's take another scenario. Let's take another scenario where the complete drive letter is different. For example, let's say on primary server, you have E drive, for example. On secondary, whereas you have a different drive letter altogether. Or let's say, for example, primary, you have restored added file on F drive F. Whereas the same drive is not exist on the secondary server. So in that scenario, let's see what we do. So I don't have any other drives. So let's assume that this is a different drive altogether, and I'm creating a folder on primary. Okay, so whereas I'm not going to create it on the secondary. Okay, let's assume that these are two different drives. Like, let's see how to fix that issue. Just not to create a folder on the secondary. Okay, so I'm going to add a file, database file on the primary itself. File. How to add the data file? Right click, go to the properties of the database, go to files, and add here from here. Okay, so db1 underscore 2, whatever it is, ndf file, secondary data file, and use that location here where I have created db1 underscore 2 folder, ndf, right? You can just script it out, or you can execute, either way should be fine. If I execute alter database name, add file, and size, it is the default size based on model database configuration. Okay, so I am adding a file to the existing database. Sorry, right. So the data file has been added to the primary database, and if you refresh, you will see the database is healthy on the primary. The same thing if I execute this master files, and the file is created here, tb2. Let's see the status on the secondary. See, this is marked as suspect because the location is not exist on the secondary server. This time, let's assume it is a different drive itself where we don't have an option, or simply creating a folder might not work. Let's assume that in this current configuration, just creating a folder should work. It will work. But let's assume you have a different drive itself where the other drive is not even exist on the secondary server. Now what you will have to do, let's see if you can remove the database from the secondary. The same story, like if you just read the error log, you will get the same information. So that is the reason I'm not going through the SQL error logs again, right? If you just execute SQL error log and if you read through, and you will get the same message, right? Create file is failed and cannot create a file with db2 db1 underscore 2, right? It is failing to create this file. Now let's try to remove the database from secondary and see if that helps. I'm not removing from the primary. I'm just trying to remove database from the secondary itself. Script out. This is just all the database name set HDR off. So the simple command. And if I execute on the secondary, see what it says, create a file, encountered operating system error. So it is also failing with the same error because it has to reapply or redo the changes, right? So if the file itself is not available, how that happens, right? So we cannot remove the database as well, right? So if you cannot remove the database, then what other options that we have to remove, or so to resolve that issue, right? Because you cannot remove only from the secondary database. Now let's go ahead and remove from the primary itself. And just for your information, for this activity, we no need to have any downtime of your application. Even if you remove the database from the primary availability group, your application still should be able to connect to the database, because application is using listener or node name, whatever it is, your application should be able to connect to the database with respect to whether the database is part of availability group or not. So there is no downtime needed for this. Okay, let's remove the database from the primary availability group. This is db1 is my database. Let's remove the database from the primary availability group. Okay, so I remove the database from the primary availability group, and if I see refresh the databases, this database has been removed from the primary replica. Let's see the status of your secondary database. Refresh, and the database is in restoring state. For now, we are good because the database came out of suspect state. So it is currently in restoring state. Now, so we should restore the databases, or we should restore the log backups, whatever it is. Like we should restore the database from the primary and to here, so that we will have all the files created on the secondary as well. Let's assume that the database size itself is 5 terabyte, or database size itself is in terabytes, right? What if you take the complete database backup and restore it on the secondary? It takes hours together, right? So it takes hours, even, so it takes very long. It depends on your backup, so network speed or drive speed, and it takes very long to restore the entire database. Until you restore, I mean, so it takes the very long to restore your primary database here on the secondary, right? So instead of that, so how about restoring only the file that we have created on the primary to secondary, right? So the file, what we have, what modifications we have done, we just to add a file db1, to the database db1, we just added a file. How about taking backup of only that file and restoring it on the secondary? Let's do that. New query. open file, open file. Okay, so let's take only the file level backup of that file which we have added. Let's say which file we have added, db1 underscore 2, right? Just for confirmation, let's take db1 underscore 2. Okay, to disk, like it can be anywhere on your location. So this is a backup file I am taking. So what I'm doing, backup database, database name to database name of what file equal to this one. So in this database, I am taking only one file. I'm not taking the entire database, which is of 5 terabyte, or it is in terabytes, or whatever it is. I'm just taking only one file instead of taking the complete database to disk, right? I'm just taking backup of this file. See here, it just took the only one file level backup. Now I want to restore this file level backup on the secondary. Here, right click on this database on secondary server, task, restore. Here we have three options: database, file and file group, transactional log backup, transactional log restore. Right now I have taken only the file level backup of your primary, so I'll go with second option to restore file and file group. Okay, so you can select the device location where you have taken the backup. I have taken backup on the primary server, so I will go with primary 2012 R2 node 1 e dollar program files, Microsoft SQL Server, MS SQL, whatever the location that we have taken a backup. Where I have taken MS SQL DB1, right? MS SQL DB1. This is the backup file level backup that I have taken. Go. Okay, okay. Now, so I will go with, you must select, okay. I will have to restore so this restore I'll have to do it with no recovery option. Okay, so with no recovery, I'll have to restore. Okay, now I don't want to restore all these things because the files already exist, right? I want to restore only one file, that to your db1 underscore 2. I don't want all the files, right? So let's remove file from disk with file with move equal to this. Okay, so where I'll have to db1 underscore 2. I mean, this is just as simple like, so I am just trying to restore in the same location as in, like, whatever file location I have on the secondary, I am restoring it. So how you are restoring? With move option, right? So I am restoring a database with a file. I'm restoring only one file. I'm not restoring all the files. Here we have, okay, so I'm restoring only one file. It is giving all the options, so I'm not going to restore all the files. I'm just restoring only one file, that is db2. From where, so this is the location where I have taken this file level backup. This is on the source, that is on your primary, with file equal to 1, whatever reason. So this is not even needed. Okay, so you can use with more this file, whatever create a new created file, to the location which exists on the secondary server. db1 location is not exist, so I'm using the default location where we have other database files on this secondary server with no recovery. Remember, this is mandate. Otherwise, the database will be recovered and it will come online. So you should have to restore database with no recovery option, right? Remember that. And if I execute this, see, the database file, the file has been restored here. Okay, cool. Now file has been restored, and now let's try to add database to the availability group on the primary itself. Okay, right click, add database. Next, db1 means it's prerequisites, whatever. Next, connect. Okay, so I will use skip initialization, data initialization, because the database is already exist. I will join the database once the database is added here on the primary itself, or you can use join only option as well, but let's go ahead and use this skip data initialization option. Okay, let's go with join only option. Let's see, the database is already exist, because what it says, starts data synchronization where you have already restored database and log backups to each secondary. This is where I am just thinking, because I have not restored the log backup. Let's go with skip initialization, initial data synchronization, and validate that. Next, finish. Okay, so the database should be added here on the primary. Refresh. db1 is already added, and whereas the database db1 on secondary is not added, let's go ahead and try to join the database and see if this allows or it is expecting to restore any log backups. Let's see. This is all not needed. This is the just a prerequisite or validation before joining the database. You can go with this alter database name, set HDR availability group equal to test AZ. Let's see. The mirror database has insufficient transaction log data. That is what I was expecting, because it needs some log file, or LSN needs to be restored. Some required LSNs needs to be replicated or available on the secondary database, which is not available, right? Let's take a transactional log backup of your primary DB1 database. Right click, task, backup, remove, add. You can take you can label, give name as db1 underscore tran.trn. My bad, so I have taken full backup. Let's see, task backup transactional log db1.trn log.trn, whatever, transaction log backup. And let's restore the transactional log backup. Okay, db1, right click, task, restore transactional log from device, where I have taken on the node 1, 2012 R2 node 1 e dollar program files, Microsoft SQL Server, MS SQL backup log db1 dot underscore log. This is what I have taken a log backup, restored with no recovery, and let's see. Cool. So I have restored the log backup. Now let's try to join the database to the availability group and see. Cool. So I was able to restore and join the database to the availability group as well. db1. Okay, so DB1 is currently synchronizing state. Cool. So that is how we have to understand where the problem is, and we'll have to go ahead and fix that issue, right? So what we understood, what we learned from this, and the database is marked as suspect state on the secondary because okay, so the database is marked as suspect on the secondary, right? So we read through the logs, error logs on the secondary, and understood it is trying to create a file on the secondary, but the location does not exist where it has to be created. Because of the location mismatch on the primary and secondary, the database on secondary marked as suspect state. Okay, so in that situation, what we have to do, if the drive letter is same on both the servers, just creating a folder on the secondary and resume the data movement should work. If the folder itself is different, a folder as in like if the drive itself is different, let's say for example on primary it is E, whereas on secondary it does not have an E drive, in that case we will have to remove database from the primary server and take the file level backup from primary and restore a file level backup on the secondary, okay, which I have taken, and take a log backup, transaction log backup, and restore a transaction log backup on the secondary, then join database to the availability group. But before that, take a like we have taken a file level backup, right? So we have to restore a file level backup on secondary with move option, right? So whereas while moving the log, moving the file, we will have to move to a location where it exists on the secondary server, right? That is how you will have to add the data file on the always on availability databases, right? Thanks. So I'll record more videos on always on and other troubleshooting scenarios. Keep watching. Thanks. Have a nice day. Bye bye.